Report on the future of sports investing. It breaks down several categories, including media rights, valuations, this influx of institutional capital, and of course, women's sports. Joining us here post 9 to discuss, Nicole Pullen Ross is Goldman Sachs head of sports and entertainment solutions. Best job at Goldman Sachs. It's great to have you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
We were just talking about sort of the wave you've caught in this coverage, and now you're looking at ways to drive incremental revenue basically across all kinds of sports assets, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the ways?
Well, it's interesting. I'll start by talking a little bit about who we speak with, who our clients are. So across the firm, we cover over 100 clients who are team owners, and their perspective includes investments that they make from every league, really across every professional league. They're investing in emerging sports. They're investing in women's sports globally. Several clients have built a portfolio of sports-related assets, and some are just getting started. So we're having a variety of conversations. I would say they have, as we talk to many clients, they help inform the paper that we've released. And there are a few key themes that resonated across the board. I'd say central across most of the conversations was a focus on leading a winning team and the virtuous cycle that creates. And in terms of some of the specific themes that came out of the conversations that we have with our clients, one is around incremental revenue. And so obviously valuations have increased meaningfully over the past several years, and investors are starting to think about how can we ensure that we're creating incremental revenue. One of the first things is looking at real estate and the fan experience in particular. You look at what the Atlanta Braves have done with the Battery, and not only the community impact that that's had, but also the impact on revenue. Many team owners are thinking about innovation and technology. The Intuit Dome, I'm not sure if you've been yet, but I think that's a gold star in terms of the leverage of technology. The second place that we're hearing a lot of consistency is around women's sports. Everybody's talking about women's sports. A couple of weeks ago, we had the honor of hosting a panel discussion with the commissioner of the WNBA, Kathy Engelbert, and one of the team owners of a WNBA team. We hosted a small client event, and the enthusiasm in the room around expansion teams, around brand and sponsorship, you could feel the momentum and the hands being raised around expansion.
Kathy's a frequent guest, of course. Yeah. We talk a lot about that. Is private equity and that as a path to invest, is that changing the game?
Meaningfully. I mean, you have to remember it's only been 5 years since private equity has been investing in U.S. sports. And over that same 5-year period, certainly the wealth creation, the pace of wealth creation has been tremendous, but it certainly hasn't kept up with the pace of valuations in sports. If you think about it, in 2014, right as media rights was starting to turn, you could buy an NBA team on average for less than $500 million.
And they did.
And they did.
I'm thinking of Milwaukee, right?
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
At 400 maybe?
Yeah. And then, so today, the average valuation of an NBA team is $4 billion. And so it's a harder check to write for any individual. So private equity is really filling a need that owners have. And they talk about it in terms of consolidating the cap table, providing liquidity, and really continuing to institutionalize the space from an operation.
Do you think that these NBA in particular, and I think of NFL as well, team valuations have peaked? How will we know that?
I think the rate of increase may not be as significant as we've seen in the past. A lot of the team owners we talk to say there's probably just less downside than there is meaningful upside. But if you look at the pace of media rights, the fan engagement, the ability to have additional revenue streams like betting, as an example, you can point to a lot of reasons why there should be continued
And there's just
support.
scarcity, right?
It's a scarcity value for sure.